Welcome to Echoes and Roots. I'm Sabine, and I guide you back to nature, to your inner wisdom, and our ancestral ways of living in harmony with Mother Earth and the cosmos.
Bonjour again. For our maybe last part of the French summer exploration, actually, I don't think it's the last part, but today, my loves, we are going to Paris, mon amour, and we're going to visit Versailles. And you see, I decked myself out for this occasion because we're talking about the Sun King and also about Marie Antoinette. And yes, we have to dress up to the occasion for this. And it was very funny when I put on this dress earlier. I I realized I had not accounted for all the French croissants I ate this summer. But we are not here to count the calories. We are here to enjoy life. So all is good. And today we're gonna explore Paris from a total new perspective and with new eyes, and really taking what I cultivated in my previous podcasts. If you're already looking for the waterways, looking for the ancient grand architecture, questioning mainstream narrative, questioning what we are being told about history, and seeing maybe history was different. Now, it's for a moment for all of us. If you've been to Versailles, or you just know about it, this grand palace, but specifically I want to take you to the gardens. So, just for a moment, imagine you are there and it's beautiful, large gardens, and everywhere there are water features. Everywhere are fountains, and you can feel the water. You can feel the life that the water brings, the fertility energy. You can feel the ancient trees standing there, the many herbs and plants growing, the flowers. And now, let's look at Versailles. First, a couple of information, and then we're going to walk through it. So, Versailles itself, the palace, it's huge. You notice, it's not the biggest palace, but it's huge. It has supposedly more than 2,300 rooms. And I didn't go to the inside of the palace itself. I went to the gardens, and I went to the Petit Trianon and Marie Antoinette's little palace, because this was a very spontaneous decision of mine to visit Versailles, and these days one cannot be any more spontaneous when visiting places, and it's really a shame because it takes us out of the feminine energy. Because in all these big cities, you have to buy now the tickets in advance, you get time slots. It's like there's no more just I'm just wandering around and just exploring. Well, then you might not see certain things that you might want to see, but either way, it didn't matter, because anyway, I thought this is far too busy. The palace itself is far too busy for the kids. This is like they're not gonna survive the gardens if I take them to the palace. And I really wanted to see the gardens, because it's actually all about the gardens. And so I took them to Petit Trianon. And what you can do there is really cool. You can actually, because it's a huge area, and especially if you want to, because we did walk up to the palace itself. So we did the whole walk from the Petit Trianon estates back to the palace, and there was this whole, it was really cool actually. There was this whole show on a water fountain show. It was cool because we saw all the fountains in action, and yeah. So where am I? So what you can do, you can drive with your car into the Versailles parks. It's very cool. You're going to pay for it, but it doesn't matter. Because if you're with kids, you want convenience, and there's only so much they can walk in heat and everything and see. So you can literally drive into the part where the Petit Trianon is, and then just park there. And oh, we're going to talk about it. It's so nice, that part. Anyway, so Versailles, with the big palace, used to be a hunting lodge, and then was extended into this big palace by the Sun King, Louis XIV. And the garden now covers 2,000 acres. But the garden originally covered 37,000 acres. 37,000 acres. That is larger than San Francisco. That was the gardens. And in the gardens, they planted over 3,500 trees. And you can still see many of the trees. The trees are really cool. And there's many rare trees there. And each year, more than 200,000 flowers are planted in this garden. The garden that is now a tiny fraction from what it used to be. And still each year, so many flowers find a home there. And then you have the water features everywhere. So actually, from the main palace, you can see down to the Grand Canal, which is the Grand Canal is in the shape of a cross. And this is like the cross where all sides are equally long. And this is actually a very ancient symbol of creation. This cross has been used by so many also spiritual crews who are really here working for creation. And there you find this big water canal, and this is a massive energetic line, waterway line, because there you have the fountain of Apollo, I think, or is it the fountain of Neptune? No, it's Apollo, I think. Exactly. And this is a major water vortex where this is on, and this is a major line going there straight through the entire Versailles Park. And then left and right, you have everywhere fountains and water features. Over 1,400 fountains now that remain, but we don't know what there was because this was much bigger. And a massive pumping system. And still to this day, we have 300 sculptures. And they tell history, actually, these sculptures. It's all about mythology and different themes. And it is, wow, it is really wow. And nowadays, the water that's been pumped there is from like kind of water recycle system, but this used to be real spring water. There are massive springs there. Wow. And this used to be, even in what we are allowed to know, this was, including the original acres, a large area designed. Now it comes. Now it comes. If you listen to my podcast on the cathedrals, I've been telling you, what have these cathedrals done? They have been used also for agriculture, infusing sound into water. And now all of a sudden we're coming here, Versailles was used for agriculture. Not just like for pleasure and garden and strolling around, agriculture. Water management and hunting and supposedly court life. But we also actually get the story that the gardens were accessible by the public. And you could bathe in that big across the Grand Canal. There were people bathing in it. We're getting very interesting stories here. It was one of the most ambitious water projects of Europe back in the time. And I'm talking a lot about how sacred water is, right? And how sacred our springs are and how powerful these spots are. So can you imagine they worked with some very powerful waters here, and one of the most ambitious one. And now let's talk about the part of Marie Antoinette. So when you come in the part that Louis XIV, the Sun King, created, so that is, it's very masculine. You see all these straight lines and yeah, everything is like kind of like squarey and everything is very organized. And then Marie Antoinette had her part, and this is the Petit Trianon part. And this was my most favorite part of the whole Versailles. Because, oh my God, Marie Antoinette, she was just really leaning into the feminine, and she was like, what, I'm not going to design everything in this very organized, straight way. I let nature flow and water flow how it's meant to flow. And so in her part, you see the waterways are all like curving around, and isn't this kind of like masculine organization in it. There's these beautiful trees, and then she has this, there's like also this element of play and fun, and there's this really cute village she built there. And then she has all these little temples, and there's a grotto, like for instance Temple of Love, and in the middle there's a statue now. But in the middle, I think, because this is again on a sacred vortex, there was a fountain as well where people could potentially drink from the original water. But so she has all these little temples, and when you start seeing what I'm also teaching you a little bit about, looking at buildings differently, you're gonna start recognizing that actually the buildings she put there, these little temples, that they potentially worked with the water, that they potentially also used sound and infused the water with sound. And her part is so beautiful because it's really bringing in the feminine energy and the softness and the playfulness and letting nature take its course. And remember how many trees they planted, how actually they made sure that some very rare species are protected. And then all the flowers, and yeah. Now what we are being told though, so we are allowed to know that actually the garden was open for the public. So even though the main narrative is that these people were totally decadent, they were just so rich, they were self-obsessed, and they were just all building this for themselves and using it for themselves, and it was just about their power. That's the narrative we are being told. And then what we are also being told, which is so interesting, so we are being told that these people at the court back then, right, that they were covered with lice and fleas because taking a bath was considered to be dangerous. So they covered themselves with perfume and wore fur around the neck to seduce the pests to crawl there instead of their heads. I don't even want to think about it. So we are being told there was very little sanitation. People urinated everywhere in the hallways in this beautiful building. And the courtyards were used as latrines, and the smell must have been horrible. And that at the reign of Louis XIV, between 3,000 and 10,000 people were living at Versailles Palace. Interesting, the court. But pests like mice and rats outnumbered the human population many times. That's what we're being told about this court of Versailles. But then, what doesn't make sense? A, the rooms in Versailles do have baths. If they didn't like bathing, why do they have baths? If they just needed a little bit of perfume and just let the pest and urinated in the hallways. Second thing is, so apparently Louis XIV built the biggest water project in Europe. The biggest. Thousands of fountains. He built this because he saw water as a power symbol. But then they didn't wash themselves. They didn't immerse themselves in water. Like, on one hand, we're being told he loved water so much, he saw it as a symbol of his own power. So he built this water park, literally. It's a massive water garden. But then we are being told they didn't drink that water. They didn't immerse themselves in that water. They didn't enjoy it. Does this make any sense? I'm just asking, does this narrative make any sense? Maybe not. Maybe not. And the other one. Louis XIV, and then Marie Antoinette actually was married to Louis XVI. So, but we were told these people they were self-obsessed, rich, ego-driven, and they were actually beheaded. Like Marie Antoinette was beheaded during the French Revolution. We are told this story that they were just all about themselves, and like there's all these places, their power, their wealth, what they build, these castles just for themselves. But again, does that make sense? Huge parks, used for also agriculture, gardens open to the public, planting of trees to be enjoyed by the public, nature for relaxation. Still to this day, so many people come the weekend to Versailles just to be in the park and enjoy the water features and enjoy the place, still to this day. And then also let's think about for a moment the rich people of nowadays. And when you do a little bit research, you will find out that most corporations just go back to one or two, and there's very few rich people who earn and hold a lot of wealth on our planet, and they are getting more. It's not that we're getting more rich people. No, the rich people get richer, and the poor get poorer, and the middle class is slowly disappearing. That's what's happening. Now, do these rich people, that some of them that we do know, do they plant trees? Do they build gardens accessible for the public? Do they build something with beauty, water features? Do they make water actually accessible to the public, even if you just think it was just a feature of fountains to be enjoyed? Or to be bathed in, actually, because there's the stories, people were bathing there. And this was the original spring water, not the water we get nowadays, not the tap water with all the chlorine and stuff in it. Do any of our rich people do that? They don't. They don't. And can we say the ego of these people was bigger than the ego of people now? We can't say that, because actually the ego of people now, especially when you consider the spiritual ego that we have at this time too, is massive. It's like, so we can't say that these people were necessarily more bad or more greedy, because we have throughout all times people in Queens are very greedy. What do the rich greedy people do to this day? They don't plant any trees. They hang around on their super yachts and other places. And do they understand anything of beauty? Not really, because they marry plastic. Jeff Bezos. Now, is Louis XIV the person? Was he really the person we are being told he was? Marie Antoinette, the woman who built this incredible feminine, beautiful garden with like herbs. She had like, there's also a massive herb garden that she created. And think about herbs were used for healing. There is a massive garden that she created with herbs. And we are now being told, yeah, that those gardens were just for her. But is this true? Is it true? Did she create it actually for herself? Or is that not the true story? Who were these people really? And now, let me take you back to Versailles, and let's imagine what Versailles actually could have been. Instead of a private palace, what could have Versailles been? Now, let's go back. Let's go back into this massive park. And in this park, again, you have everywhere, you have beautiful flowers. And flowers, they bring, when you just imagine yourself there, you close your eyes. And flowers, they have also a certain level of, their healing also just comes with their presence. Their vibration, specifically when they are combined with water. It's like their essence and the water, and when they're combined with music, I've been telling you, there are these little temples, they're in Versailles everywhere, where music was potentially being played from. And so imagine there is music, and there is water everywhere, and this is the beautiful spring water coming from Mother Earth. So this is like her aliveness. This is a connection to her, to the mother, and to God. And it's coming out everywhere in these beautiful fountains. And then you will feel the energy of the trees around you and the herbs. And what does this create in us? It is healing. It becomes a place where this garden potentially actually was a healing garden. And what could the palace have been? 2,300 rooms. This could have been a massive spa. The opposite of what we've been told. A spa working with the spring water. And then these big public gardens for agriculture, same concept as what I've been telling you with ambiance. Infusing the water with sound to bring consciousness, to bring fertility into the land and into our produce, into that what we drink and eat. It could also create a massive power grid, free energy. Because all these water vortexes that they were working with, where they have placed the Grand Canal on, for instance, especially the Grand Canal, but also the fountains leading up to it, they are placed on these very powerful underground water vortexes. They create electricity. Massive free energy grid. And this gets us to the question, actually, could our history have been changed so much that we've been just told these people were all selfish and this was just all for them, and this was a private palace to live, and that they're all filthy, they didn't believe in water or didn't use the capabilities of water. Let me tell you some stories about history. So first story I sometimes tell on this podcast is I grew up under the communists in East Germany, and my brother spent a couple of more years in their schooling system. I didn't spend much, thank God. We kept his books, specifically the history books. And I can tell you, the history in those books is nothing compared to the history that I had later in my history books. It is not that the events were not there. So the First World War, Second World War, French Revolution is all there. But what exactly happened, the players, all different. All different. The why, the how, different. And it doesn't take much to convince. You just need 2 generations to convince people because communists were incredibly good, but capitalism is very good at this as well. Mass brainwashing, media, education system, to tell us that something was a certain way on a mass scale, has been done before. Look at the media propaganda that Hitler was driving. Now, another thing is, I was working, if you follow me for a longer time, that I was working with the Akashic Records. And I don't do that kind of work anymore because it's a very masculine way to want to know what's going to happen and want to try and figure everything out. But also, I realized that there is a massive amount of manipulation and distortion in this so-called field that people go into when they say they tap into the Akashic Records. So everybody actually holds. All of us, each individual holds our DNA, our real, true Akashic Records in our own DNA, in the 8th chakra, thymus gland. But this is for each person individually to tap into and to, regain memories. This is not something that an external person can. Can you easily tap into someone's DNA? Not that easy, right? So what people generally do when they work with what's so-called the Akashic Records of history, they actually go into the astral field. And in the astral field, there is a massive amount of distortion. That's why I also don't trust any channeled material anymore, because I've seen the distortions. But what is happening, for instance, with the Akashic Records of people? Because, and this is the same with the written historic records that we have and that we rely on for this history on the French Revolution, etc., and on these kings and on history in general, is that there is a certain level of truth, because you always need to keep a certain level of truth, because as I said, you have intuitively, you have your own memory bank in your DNA. So you have actually the real truth within you. But when you go tap into another source, like in this astral field, you basically, then there needs to be a resonance that you trusted. So there is a certain, as I said, certain level of truth, and then there are some distortions and lies. And this is simply the same with our history as we know it from research. And then of course it also comes with archaeology. The issue that comes in there is interpretation, because we're interpreting it from our current level of consciousness, which can't even fathom and imagine a different story. One of the biggest examples is Skara Brae in Orkney, where I'm really arguing Skara Brae is not a living, it's not a Neolithic living village where people lived. Skara Brae was a mystery school. This is like a temple design. This is like, but even there is common sense where you look at the beds that are supposedly where beds are too small. The thing that you call a shelf is an altar. But of course, and this has to do with interpretation, right? We looking because we don't think back anymore of that our ancestors could have been more highly evolved. Now we're getting a bit of that knowledge back. That they could have had these temples, these mystery schools. And the same with like the free water grids, right? The free energy grids with water. Because we don't see it right now, because we live in a very different world right now. We cannot really imagine how it was. So yeah, it takes much more work. And there is always this a certain amount of truth, and then there is the distortions. And that's why it's so important that we're going to start feel again. That's what I'm teaching you with my work, is to go and feel into places. And you want to feel the water veins. And you're going to literally start making connections, because you can then, once you feel it, you can see it. It's so obvious. When I was in Versailles, oh my God, we're going to come to Paris. We were in Paris. Becomes, you look at a city, at a place, is so different ways, because it becomes obvious. Welcome to the Queen. She's generally with this hot weather. She is staying. I'm talking about my cat. She is staying in the garden. Me and her love my garden because I totally redesigned it, and took a lot of work and care into my garden. But yeah, she's coming for this transmission of Paris Mon Amour. She wants to be here when we talk about the city of love. But I'm just inviting you, right? I'm not claiming that I'm presenting you the truth, but I'm just inviting you for a different perspective. You just look at life and look at our history with more open eyes and more question things, and then just discover more and explore. Really explore and see, could Versailles have been a spa? Could this massive garden have been just this beautiful healing garden? Working with water and working with the energy of plants. So yeah. Now, what is also in Versailles, there are some very heavy energies now running through Versailles, because our ancient ley lines, our beautiful waterways are used by some not so benevolent people and forces. So in Versailles, as well as Mont Saint-Michel, so I talked about this in my previous podcast, there are 3 places where my kids literally got a bit crazy. But it's so interesting when you take kids, and kids that are sensitive, because obviously my kids, to play and see their reactions. So the 3 places, they are kind of really lost it. Versailles, and we didn't even go to the palace. I loved the gardens of Versailles, especially Marie Antoinette's place. I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful, all the feminine energy. So Versailles, Mont Saint-Michel, and Reims Cathedral. I spoke about Reims in the previous podcast. Mont Saint-Michel. So what's happening actually at Versailles, Mont Saint-Michel, there are these frequencies run, literally the power spots there are being used by non-malevolent forces, because this used to be places of the Divine Mother. These are sacred earth spot. And always what's happening, I also been telling you this with the churches. The church is only so powerful because they're using the sacred earth spots. They're using the water, the feminine energy of the mother for their own agenda. That is the problem. Not to spread healing and to spread like unity consciousness to us. No, for the own agenda, for the greed and for the power and control. Typical thing as always, right? So, but what is running through there? It's like the black heart of Anubis. That's kind of an implant in the heart, and that's not great because that's disconnecting us from the love in the heart. And actually, when I think, like, there are places there that are so, because it's the city of love, Paris, and France in itself, like in this whole awakening of the Albion and the Qatar body. I'm speaking about this more in my deep dive in the King Arthur deep dive. What is the Albion? What is the Qatar? What is this whole awakening of these land masses, France, UK, and Ireland? The French is really so that French of the Qatar, what they held, that's really the feminine principle, and that's so much in the heart and being in the love, and that's why they also have these black heart implants there in the France landmass, because they want to suppress this natural heart energy, and it's so beautiful, this expansion of the heart. And I also imagine like a place of Versailles, what if also in very ancient times, what this place could have been because of just because of the heart energy there. And yeah. And nowadays, you cannot drink anymore from the spring water they used to use for those fountains and for the places people bathed in. I do believe these people bathed. I just don't believe. You cannot, look, it doesn't fit rationally that you're building a water park because you're believing water is power, but you don't bathe. And you don't drink the water. This doesn't make sense. So we also need to sometimes have common sense. So I do believe they bathe, and they drank the water. And now, oh my God, France has one of them, other than the United States. The worst tap water is in the United States. I'm sorry to say that. I lived there. It was terrible. You guys have springs too. So I just yeah. But you can do that, and then of course water filtering system, things like that. But yeah, and France also has very bad, and specifically in Paris, unfortunately, because oh my God, Paris, oh my God, it was another water city. But and then so we originally are planned for us to stay in Versailles, but then I dumped this idea again because I thought the kids gonna go crazy with the palace, and the kids still got crazy in the gardens. But okay, but we stayed in Saint-Germain-en-Laye, and this was so important for my research, which I realized later, because those kings that built Versailles, their other castle was Saint-Germain-en-Laye, and Saint-Germain-en-Laye, really cute town, nice food too, very nice. Like the ice cream, there's a very good ice cream place, and I don't eat ice cream, the kids eat of course, but I love the hot chocolate. The French hot chocolate is not a normal hot chocolate. That's why the trust problem. No, I've been really enjoying myself. I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is indulgence on a different level. Yeah. But so wait, coming back from the food, I need to bring it back from the food to where were we? We were in Saint-Germain-en-Laye. Saint-Germain-en-Laye. Oh my goodness, when you go there, you have to go to the castle, because there's so many reasons. They also had this huge park, and now under the park there is like the highway, there is the metro, like all these incredible waterways and ley lines, all disturbed by modern building. But they still have some fountains in this park, but the castle. So first and foremost, that castle has an incredible Gothic cathedral. And I tell you, they were working the same thing. They were just infusing the water with sound. That is what these Gothic cathedrals were all about. They were just sound resonant chambers, sound into the water, because the castles were not castles. You can still see, this is so incredible. So around where, this was a water castle, around where the ancient water ditches, what is in the water ditch? A Neolithic building, like a dolmen, two of them. And exactly because these dolmens were always built along the underground water veins using those vortexes. And this is so crazy there. It exactly goes along where later on the castle has built its water ring around. So there is this underground water vein with tons of important vortexes, multiple water veins crossings. So you get all this vortex, this energy, and then boom, they built the Gothic cathedral there. And honestly, I would really doubt how old they are. I don't think this is medieval stuff. I think this is earlier. But anyway, they built this there. Sound being produced. You have these beautiful big windows, like the stained glass. You have color coming together because sound produces color as well, and oh my god, and all of this, and then into the water. And then later on, what did they later do? They had these massive gardens again with all these fountains. And again, I think this was also used for agriculture because this is the ancient science. We put consciousness, we put fertility into the water so our crops grow better and they have a certain level of consciousness. This is the whole deal. And this is also what I don't like now about the modern or the latest translation of the Melchizedek cloister material is like they've written that part out because that seriously is a part that Yeshua 12 taught on, like this ancient science. And I was like, and now you don't mention it? How is it possible? Actually, Lisa Renee does talk a little bit about it. Not too much though. She doesn't go into detail about how this was really done, but I mean, this is what we used to do. So then everybody around us actually has a certain level of unity consciousness, and it's not like now where we have people being totally disconnected from themselves, from Mother Earth, right, trashing the planet, from their own intuition, from their own power, their power. So now we have a big mix of some people reclaiming their power and reclaiming connection to earth. Luckily, we always had certain indigenous civilizations, certain tribes that kept that knowledge, but now it's all just all over the place. But if you wanted to have a larger civilization, you would I love the cat is lying on my notes. Anyway, you would just do that. You would infuse your crops with the sounds of God, of the unity field. Yeah, and how you do this, of course, you use certain geometry and the right one. I'll be telling you about what this Metatronic stuff is. Not great. Wait, I need to get, I know, oh my god, I don't want to move her, but I do need to get at my notes. She's like, I'm lying on the Versailles stuff. She's like, that's the family. She's a woman, right? So I love. Now what she's gonna do now? Because we have to continue talking about this. And now, exactly, the question comes. The French Revolution, actually, was the French Revolution really this event that led to freedom? And that led to the people who were suppressed really into more power. Was it really that? Because what happened actually during the French Revolution? So we have that out of a sudden these big parks, Versailles and everything is not being used anymore like that. And okay, if we believe it was just for these power-hungry kings and queens, okay. But what if it, as I said, what if it wasn't? What if it was a spa? And healing gardens. And now out of a sudden, it's not used anymore like that. Secondly, we had a mass amount of the stained glass windows of these Gothic cathedrals being destroyed during the French Revolution. Why? Another thing is, of course, the war and violence imprint on important power spots, because they didn't just behead these kings and queens anywhere. Marie Antoinette, I'm going to tell you where she was beheaded. And it's not good. It's not good for the mother, for her sacred spots. Because now we are moving on to Paris. So we're coming to the city of love. And of course, oh my god, you need to see Paris into new eyes. When you walk anyway now, right, unless you do the planning, you cannot go inside and eating good food. But So you're just walking around, right? You're walking around in Paris, and oh my God, you're opening up your eyes to where are you gonna feel? Where are these ancient power? Where are the waterways, the ley lines, the ancient power spots? Where are the ancient fountains that we would drink from? And you out of a sudden, you see connections everywhere. You see these grand buildings, these incredible buildings, and you realize, oh my God, they are all built on these underground water veins. Oh my God. So you have one massive one that goes along where the Louvre is. And now even the Louvre, they built this ugly pyramid in the middle of that courtyard. And where is it built into? It's actually built into a fountain, a spring. It's built on a water source. It's like, oh my God, speaking of suppression of energy, right? Because these places, they have energy, they have fertility energy. That's not a thing. They have healing energy. I've been telling you this in my podcast on Karnak. Like the Neoliths built on these power vortexes because there's healing energy for our chakras here. You can do your heart healing, you can do your lung healing, you can open your third eye, you can balance the solar plexus, you can get into the fertility energy, which is very important because we have lots of fertility problems these days. And it's not necessarily to do with age. So then out of a sudden, so where is this line going? So you're following the line. You're at Paris, you're following the line where you have the Louvre. And then you come to the Place de la Concorde. And what's going on there is not good now. Because nowadays, right, all this ancient power vortexes, they're all suppressed. The waters are suppressed. The feminine, that's the whole point. The feminine energy is suppressed on this planet. And the Place de la Concorde, we have so much going on there. Let's talk first about it. It was the site of the execution under the French Revolution. So Marie Antoinette, she was beheaded at the Place de la Concorde. Power vortex of the Divine Mother. Most likely fertility energy. And here a woman, we are being told she was all selfish, but a woman who built this incredible garden. Did she really build it for herself or not? Was she actually a total different woman? She's not the first woman that's been portrayed very differently in history. I'm telling you about all these women that are portrayed super different in history or written out of history because it's like, yeah, it's just another thing. And then now, what do we have now? Then we get the octagon shape. I don't like the octagon shape. It's used a lot on these ancient spring sites. It's like the octagon is a lot about power. It's used by the military. I just don't like the shape. The pentagon is used by the military too, but nah, that's a different thing. Then we have, oh my God, we have the obelisk on it now. And the obelisk network is another thing that is literally, it is suppressing and capping energies. And there is a whole network across the world of war monuments and obelisks that run non-benevolent frequencies that keep us in separation and in duality consciousness. So the obelisk is not a good thing. Now this place is also being used for what? Military parades and Olympic ceremonies. Now, I know for those out of you who like sports, these ceremonies, they're very problematic. And if you just want to know a bit more about this, you should a little bit look into Illuminati. And you get down the rabbit hole very quickly about these ceremonies and the symbolisms used in these ceremonies and the agendas behind it, and you're not going to enjoy it anymore, unfortunately. And it's just once you see it, literally once it becomes obvious and you see it, you just can't unsee it anymore. It's just so into our face. It is, everything that's happening on our planet is actually in our face. The problem is though that because of trauma, most people cannot get there. So that's something I actually want to mention. This whole, everything that's happening on the planet can be brought down to the balance of feminine and masculine energy within you and to the inner work you're doing. Like I had a deep dive into all of the darker sides of history last year, and it was hard. It was really hard, because unless your nervous system feels safe, you cannot do it. And for most people, their nervous system is not in a state of safety. You really have to cultivate over and over and over again inner safety. Also, is so important as a woman. If you really want to be in, you really want to embody the feminine energy. You want to be in that space that is playful, that is happy, that is joyful, that is just kind of flowing, has a trust in God, that knows her worth, that is so connected to her intuition, and then you have to cultivate also that strong inner masculine in terms of the boundaries and the safety within you. Because the safety within you is going to get you out of this very masculine mode of chasing. We are in a very masculine world. And even like what I'm presenting, all this information is very masculine mode, unfortunately, because, and so I'm also saying, I can't convince you with the information I'm presenting. You have to feel for yourself. I can only open your eyes, and then you go to places and feel, and you discover for yourself what it means, these places, and what they were. Because all this surge, now also with the AI, like it's very masculine in a way. It's like away from trusting our intuition, just thinking all the time, being in the head all the time, the constant information overload from social media. It's a story, it repeats itself over and over again. It's always about the feminine and masculine and its balance. And that's why also Marie Antoinette, she built a balance to this very masculine organization of Versailles, because it was too masculine, even though working with water. And we actually don't know, maybe they actually used the power of water. That could also be, maybe it wasn't a healing spa and they just wanted to build a free energy grid and use the water for it. But it wasn't for healing, or it wasn't accessible to the public. We don't know. But what I know, what I felt, and what she did, she built this really beautiful, very feminine place for water and for music and for plants and beauty in plants and healing capabilities in plants. So yeah, we can only take it for that. And then, okay, then we have another line, and that is, there's many in Paris. This was a city of water, also of these ancient waterways and these beautiful buildings that also worked with the water. And the fountains, and you're going to start to see this because Place de la Concorde, most likely it had a massive spring in the past, and now they have the obelisk. Yep. And the military parades. And now we have another line. It's where the Eiffel Tower is on, and the Eiffel Tower is bad news as well. But so on this line, there's this building, you see it, and there's also again there's these big parks. When you look down from the Eiffel Tower, you see to both sides. You see one side, there is like, that's over the road. No, that's over the Seine. So like, yes, exactly, it's on the other side of the Seine. And then, but you see like there's a massive big swimming. It's not a swimming pool, I call it a swimming pool, but maybe it was an ancient spring, an ancient thermal, nice spa swimming thing actually. And now it's just a huge pool of water and a fountain with water that's not anymore spring, and then there's this huge building behind it. And then on the other side, away from the Seine, you have this big park that also used to have all these fountains, and then you have this building that supposedly now it says it's the École Militaire. Military building. Again, it's like the war, the destruction, the trauma being put onto the sacred places of the mother. It's the same story over again, and it's like, it's not right. It's like, we shouldn't be doing this, because but it says actually that the original building was founded by, again, Louis XV. So we don't have Louis XIV, we have, I guess it's one of his kids, Louis XV. And he was also the one who built the Petit Trianon in Versailles. So you have the Petit Trianon is one little palace, and then next to this is Marie Antoinette stuff. So this is really interesting. So this building again linked to Versailles, and then claimed it was a military school. Maybe it wasn't a military school originally. Maybe a lot of these buildings were inherited by the church, by the military, by whoever later, but that was not what they were at a certain time in history. And then we have on this waterway, on most likely another very powerful water vortex, we have the Eiffel Tower. And the Eiffel Tower is just one of these other Masonic Freemason buildings. You can't, like, honestly, you can't make this stuff up, because the Eiffel Tower, 330 meters, 33 is their number. They love this 33. And it is also, it's all the metal. You really, with these metal structures, you can feel this when you're there. It's literally, it's just suppressing the energy. It's capping the energy off. It's a similar thing that happens on the spire at Mont Saint-Michel, where they have their Saint Michael. Just like this metal thing, just like capping the energy off and suppressing it. Oh my, I really, and I mean, okay. I shouldn't say it's an ugly thing, but people have different opinions about the Eiffel Tower. But we can argue about what is beauty. But it is definitely built on purpose, on a very important spot. Power vortex, on an ancient ley line, multiple ley lines crossing there most likely. And it is not doing its good. That is clear. And also, I looked up later on what this whole area around this was in the past. And it is so interesting what this area was in the past. What do you think it was? Powerful water vortexes. We have somehow buildings that kind of work with water. It was an ancient vegetable garden. I'm just not surprised. And when you think about Paris once could have had a total free energy grid just built on the water. It could have infused with, like, the vegetables, the water, with so much sound for higher consciousness. Paris could have been like really a total different city than now. And then actually the energy in Paris it's not that bad. It's quite good actually. So, I don't know, makes me think of Paris in totally different ways. And when we think about, it's called the city of l'amour, love. Yeah, maybe it had all also to do with beautiful heart energy opening and healing. And yeah, we don't know. We really don't know. And there's also this whole thing that just comes to my mind of the Paris Meridian. That's what somebody researched. I don't know if that's a new age thing. But this meridian is very interesting because it goes down into some places where you have a lot of Mary Magdalene churches in South France. And then it goes into some other very important places in Spain. And some old Neolithic sites and stuff. So, yeah, Paris is very interesting and energetically, and it might have been so different, and we might have had many times the golden ages where there was purity surrounding us and the waters of the mother surrounding us, and we could just feel when you enrich a nature place with these beautiful waters, and when the waters are just so vibrant and alive, like everything becomes so magical. Like everything just starts to glow and becomes so alive. So yeah, maybe it was like that. Maybe I'm just imagining it, but that doesn't matter because it's just for you to open your heart and your eyes to it, and to also really cultivate this within your waters, because in the end the suppression of the waters of the mother here on our planet have to also do with the suppression of the waters within us and the feminine energy, and with the path that every woman is on in the end of the day, to embody these beautiful qualities of the waters, and sometimes stormy. Yep, it's water, it's emotions. It's so tied into our emotions and into feeling, and bringing like the feeling back into life and into our lives, and the what life is all about. It's like the connection to people, the sharing, the feeling, the good food that you have, perhaps. Yeah. So thank you so much. I might have some more French exploration for you, or maybe not. I don't know. Whatever I feel like coming up. But yeah, thanks. And any questions, leave me some comments if you want to work further with me, and especially with your energy. Actually, if you want to learn to feel the energy within you, then I invite you into my nature-inspired courses, where you can really work with the meridians of your acupuncture points, with nature seasons. And if you're really curious about history and the spiritual science, and specifically the science I'm teaching out of the Melchizedek cloister lineage, then go into my course, Humanity, the Reclamation. And thanks so much, and au revoir. Bye bye.
Follow me on Instagram at Echoes and Roots for grounded spirituality, ancient wisdom,